So, physics really is child's play. Physics is so simple and it's so much a part of our everyday life, it really is child's play. We know automatically from our general experience of life, we know such a lot of physics. And what Chode is demonstrating here, a very complicated phenomenon known as resonance. Now, Chode, if you could stop pushing him for a moment. Now, what I want you to notice is the swing swings with a certain frequency. Nobody's pushing him. The swing is just swinging by itself. This is the natural frequency of swing of Sering Tashi. The swing has its own natural frequency of swing. Now, all those mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters who've taken their little relatives on a swing will know that if you want to get them swinging, you have to push at just the right moment. And if you think about it, you are pushing at the same frequency. 1, 2, 3. You're pushing at the same frequency as the natural frequency of the spring, of the swing. Now, if you get it wrong, then it doesn't work. If I want him to have a really good swing and I get it wrong so that I'm pushing him at the wrong moments, either too fast or at the wrong moment, so I'm pushing him now, then it's not very good, it doesn't work. To get this swing to swing with good swings, I have to input a force at the same frequency as the natural frequency of the spring. What we're seeing now is a phenomenon called resonance, which is a very, very important phenomenon in physics. It applies to everything from a child on a swing right the way through to how your electronic watch works, the crystal in your electronic watch, right the way through to how a laser works, right the way through to how, you've heard of it in the hospital, MRI scan, magnetic resonance imaging. The phenomenon of resonance is all around us, just like all of physics is, and it's most easily seen in my pushing the child's swing at just the right frequency. There is a natural frequency of vibration of the spring, and I am inputting a force at the same frequency. And if I kept on doing this and Sonam was not too unhappy, the swing will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I'm not going to terrify the child by sending him up into the sky there, but if I input my force with the same frequency as the natural swing of the children's swing here, then the amplitude of his vibration will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So resonance, terribly important. We're going to look at it in various places where we find it in everyday life. Thank you very much, Sering Tashi. You can get off the swing now. You notice, to slow him down, I input a force at just the wrong moment, and that makes him stop. Thank you, Sering. You can get out of the swing. So, you notice the frequency of the swing by itself is exactly the same, even if Sering Tashi is not sitting on it. So the frequency of this swing, doesn't depend on how heavy somebody is here. It only depends on the length of the chains. Galileo discovered that 500 years ago, sitting in the Cathedral of Pisa, watching a great chandelier swinging. He realized that it didn't matter how heavy the chandelier was. All that mattered was how long the chain holding it up was. And he gave rise to the idea of a pendulum, which we use in the original sort of pendulum clock. So there we are. Push it at the right moment and the swing gets bigger and bigger. Push it at the wrong moment and I stop it. If I push this with a rapid frequency like that, it doesn't do anything. If I push it with its natural frequency, the swing gets bigger and bigger. If ever you do this yourself in a children's playground, be careful the swing doesn't come so far back up that it knocks you out. I saw that happen once in a private garden where father was swinging the child. He input his force at the same frequency as the natural frequency of the spring. The amplitude got bigger, came back, hit him on the chin and knocked him out. So take care with swings. They can be a bit dangerous. Let's go and look at a bit more child's play, which is resonance. Let's go to Timpu Primary School and see how resonance can make beautiful noises. So down at Centennial Park, we looked at a children's swing, and we saw that a children's swing has a natural frequency of vibration. And we saw that if I input a force with the same frequency as the natural frequency of vibration, the swing became big, and that is called resonance. When I input a force at the same frequency as the natural frequency of the spring, of the swing. Resonance. Well, now, everything has a natural frequency. If I knock on the table, that gives a noise. Different objects give different noises, their natural frequency. And even a blade of grass has a natural frequency of vibration. And if Jigme here holds the blade of grass tightly and blows, it makes a sound. It vibrates because of him blowing. It vibrates at a frequency depending on how tightly you hold the grass and how long the piece of grass is. And with luck, Jigme here in class 6A at Timpu Primary School, he's going to demonstrate the natural frequency of vibration of a blade of grass. That was quite a high note. The blade of grass was vibrating at quite a high frequency. What was making it vibrate? His breath going over it, making it flutter. Can you do a lower note, Jigme? Again. Again. So you hear that's a lower pitch note. So a blade of grass can vibrate. And does anybody else want to go? You have a go. Remember I said physics is so simple. Physics is really child's play. And if you practice a bit with these blades of grass, I could make an orchestra out of this class, each with a blade of grass and trying to make a note out of it. Some are better at it than others. You have to practice. No. We noticed the way Jigme is holding it. You've got to hold it tight. Well, there we are. Some people are better at making a note from a blade of grass, others are not. But at home, you try it. And what you're doing is making the grass vibrate at its natural frequency. Now, you can also at home try another way of making something vibrate at its natural frequency. Now, we just saw a blade of grass has a natural frequency of vibration. Now, I've got a plastic drinks bottle, and there's air inside that plastic drinks bottle. And if I blow across the top, I can make the air in the bottle vibrate. I could make a musical instrument out of it, because the more air in the bottle, the lower the frequency of vibration. So if you listen to my bottle, a low frequency, because there's a lot of air in there. Smaller bottle, higher frequency, because there is less air. And this one is sort of in between, because if you look, the quantity of air in each bottle. So from these three bottles, I could make an orchestra. If I got more bottles and more children, each bottle has got its own note, or so if I chose the size of bottles correctly, I could go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and I could play a tune with each person blowing their own bottle. Blow, blow. So what you should try at home with your friends is get 8 friends, 8 bottles, and try and make an orchestra. Now, if somebody gives me a jug of water, see, I can change the volume in a bottle. Now, look at the volume of air in there. Listen to the note. Right, thank you. Again, let's put that down there. I'm going to put water in this now. Now, I've not got a very steady hand, so it's going to drip all over the place. If you do this, do it in your kitchen or outside. And if I put water in the bottle, I'm reducing the amount of air in the bottle. And if I reduce the amount of air, it will give me a higher note. If I reduce the amount of air still more, so I could have a whole lot of water bottles like this, put different amounts of water in each to get the correct notes. And that's how I can make a plastic bottle orchestra. How the air inside is made to vibrate at its natural frequency. And the natural frequency of the air in this bottle depends on how much air there is. Just as with my blade of grass, by pulling it tighter or making it shorter, I can get different notes from a blade of grass. This is how a flute works. And when I take a flute and blow across the little hole, it's just like blowing across the top of a bottle. And when I change my fingers on the flute to make it play a tune, what I'm doing is adjusting the length of the air column that is inside the flute, just as I adjusted the amount of air in this bottle by filling it with water. My fingers let air in or out so I can make the air that's vibrating a longer column or a shorter column of flute. And instruments like an oboe or a jarling. Now, a jarling, if you remember, there are 2 little reeds that you put between your tongue, between your lips, and you blow, And it's just as he did, you're making those reeds vibrate. So you, if you demonstrate that again, you're showing us how a jarling makes noise. There we are. Thank you very much indeed, Timpu Primary School. You're all going to be great musicians, and we'll go on and look in a moment at some other examples of resonance. Now, that's the natural frequency of vibration of that string. And I can change the natural frequency by making the string shorter. By pressing the string there, he's made the string shorter. Listen to what effect that has on the natural frequency of vibration of the string. A higher frequency, a higher note. And if we make the string shorter still, press hard, make it shorter still, so this is how a string instrument works, by using your fingers to change the natural frequency of vibration of the string. Now, we've said short string, long string. We can also change the natural frequency by making the string tighter. And if I come up here, the natural frequency is much higher because the string is tighter. That's what happens when you tune a stringed instrument. And if you make it shorter by pressing hard there, and shorter still, so I can get a whole lot of different notes from a stringed instrument like this. And the funny thing is that we don't have two guitars, but here we've got a violin. Come here, do you play the violin? Yes, so would you give us a note on the violin? And now give us a higher note. And a lower note. And a higher note. So we're doing exactly the same thing with the violin. We're changing the natural frequency of vibration of the string. We're changing it, making it a higher or a lower frequency by making the string longer or shorter. And also by making the string tighter or less tight. This string is much less tight than this one. So I get a lower note. Can you play that note for us? Instead of me plucking it, the bow goes across and causes the string to vibrate. Thank you. Now the funny thing is, it would be nice to be able to show this with two guitars. I don't think it'll work with a violin and a guitar, but resonance. These are almost the same note. The funny thing is, if I take a guitar and a violin and I make this string vibrate, it's virtually the same frequency as this string in the violin. Now, resonance. That's the natural frequency of the violin string. That's the frequency of the guitar string. If I pluck the guitar string, the vibrations, the sound vibrations travel through the air to the violin, and they will make this string on the violin vibrate all by itself, because it's just like pushing the child on the swing. I'm creating a note here, The waves travel through to the violin. Here's the child on the swing, and it makes this string vibrate as well, because this is providing the same frequency as the natural frequency of the violin string. It's very good. Try it with two guitars. It's a bit more obvious. You can actually feel this violin string vibrate. On a guitar, you can actually hear them both vibrate. And that's part of making wonderful music, is to use this idea of resonance. So noise from one instrument can actually cause vibrations in the other instrument. It's very important when composing a piece for the piano, where getting various strings to vibrate all by themselves through resonance can create very rich sounding music. So, stringed instruments, natural frequency of vibration. Resonance, when I force something to move at its natural frequency of vibration. Well, I said physics is child play. Sometimes you may see a young child playing with something and you think, what a waste of time. You shouldn't be flicking your ruler in class. You should be studying hard. But the point is this: an awful lot of simple things that children do when they're playing have got great science in them. And if we look at flicking the ruler, we're now talking about, again, about natural frequency of vibration. If I hold the ruler there and flick it, look at it vibrating. That's its natural frequency. I can make the natural frequency higher by making the ruler shorter. And I can make it higher still. So, simply by playing with the ruler, flicking it on the table, the child can actually learn about natural frequency of oscillation. Natural frequency of oscillation. Can you say that?
Natural
frequency of oscillation. So, when you see your child playing, think about what science is there that you can teach them from their play. Now, this, what you're seeing here, is unbelievably important and has been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people. How or why? If you think about it, this is like part of a bridge. Now, a bridge has a natural frequency of oscillation. A bridge is held at two ends, so the natural frequency is by doing this. But we can see it here. There's the natural frequency of oscillation of a bridge. And if a bridge went like that, it would be pretty uncomfortable walking over it or driving over it. Now, if soldiers walk across a bridge, and if they're all in step, ba-jum, ba-jum, walking across the bridge, and if their pace, the frequency of their marching, is the same as the natural frequency of oscillation of the bridge, watch what happens. The soldiers' feet are going boom, 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 boom. Let's try and get the natural frequency. And eventually, they cause the vibrations of the bridge to go bigger and bigger, and the bridge collapses. Now, you may think, oh, well, that's a fairy story. It's not. There have been many cases where soldiers marching in step across a bridge have caused the bridge to collapse. First recorded one was over 100 years ago, a bridge in America where soldiers marched across, 240 soldiers were drowned. And another bridge in Europe in a town called Angers, 20, 30 soldiers all drowned because they marched in step across a bridge. And now, and I'm sure this applies to the Royal Bhutan Army and the Royal Bodyguard, now soldiers are told, whenever they're going to cross a bridge, You must never march in step. And the officer will give an order, break step, which means instead of everybody going left, right, they go left, right, and some go fast, some go slow. And the danger is, if they're all going together at the natural frequency of the bridge, they will cause the bridge to vibrate so much it collapses. And at the beginning of the first program on waves, I showed you a very large bridge in America collapsing. Let's look at that again. And it wasn't soldiers marching across, it was wind blowing like this. Now, just like the wind from your mouth can make the blade of grass vibrate, so the wind blowing across the bridge like this can make the bridge vibrate. And if the wind is making the bridge vibrate at its natural frequency, the vibrations get bigger and bigger, and now in the film clip that's coming, you'll see what happened to the famous Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
No structure of steel and concrete can stand such a strain. Steel girders buckle and giant cables snap like puny threads. There it goes!
So we saw that Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsing due to the wind blowing on either side of the bridge and the bridge going up and down, and the wind caused it to vibrate at its natural frequency, resonance. We talked about how soldiers should not march in step across a bridge. Now, people have learned an awful lot about bridge design as a result of the bridge that collapsed, but that was many, many decades ago. But still, there's a lot to learn. And in the year 2000, a very famous footbridge was built across the River Thames. And here's the River Thames in London. There you can see St. Paul's Cathedral. And here was this beautiful footbridge, which was designed to be as thin as possible. And it was called the Millennium Footbridge. But I'm afraid very quickly it was given the nickname the Wobbly Bridge, because it was discovered when a lot of people walked across it, it didn't start to go up and down, but it started to sway from side to side. And the engineers could not work out why this was happening. And they had to close the bridge for over a year while they tried to work out what the problem was. And the problem was very interesting. The bridge swayed from side to side a little bit. But as people walked across, because the bridge was swaying, they started to sway themselves, and they would walk like this. And they were doing that at the natural frequency of sway of the bridge. And so the sway got bigger and bigger and bigger. The people walking across it made the sway get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it took them a year and a half to work out what to do about it and how to stop this happening. Well, now, there's a very good example in Bhutan of a bridge which sways. I don't know if you've been to Punakha and approached Punakha Zong across that very, very long suspension bridge. I think it's the second longest, or if not the longest, suspension bridge in Bhutan. As you walk across it, you will notice that coming out of the sides of the suspension bridge are ropes like this, which are attached to the bank. And they are to stop the suspension bridge swaying like that. But, you know, if you make a bridge start to move at its natural frequency, very easily the bridge can be destroyed. So be careful when you go across that suspension bridge. Don't take a whole class of students marching across it in time, because that would be very dangerous. So bridge design, continually getting better and better and better. There may still be things that we haven't discovered about bridge design, And a lot of it all depends on an understanding of resonance. So we saw the danger of soldiers marching all together in step across a bridge. It can cause a bridge to collapse because of resonance. Well, when it comes to building buildings, knowledge of resonance is very, very important too. Now, I've come here to Cafe Klein in the middle of Thimphu because the owner is building a balcony here. And he was telling me that he's made the floor particularly strong because one or two people may start dancing up here. Now, if you think about it, if you're dancing, you're all bopping up and down in time to the music. And so it means everybody's going up and down at the same time. Now, if they're all going up and down at the same time, and they are going up and down at the resonant frequency of this balcony, the balcony can start going up and down, and if it isn't strong, it will collapse. So when you build a building, it's very, very important to be aware of the phenomenon of resonance. And this is a very good example of it.